Thank you, sir, for giving me the opportunity to give a presentation on safeguarding the Indian Ocean region, UD, and the multilateral partnership. My name is Divya Rai, and I'm a research fellow at the MRC. So the presentation before me by all the presenters and speakers, they have actually made my task much easier. So I will not dwell deeper into the importance and the impacts on of the climate change on the Indian Ocean region because it has already been covered by them. But I will specifically highlight one of the case studies that I have done while working on a project with the MRC is how the climate risk assessment and taking up the case of Bay of Bengal region, which is extremely important to India. And then I have also correlated it with the need to have a UDA, underwater domain awareness, in various multilateral constructs, and how UDA can actually help us in mitigating the impacts of climate change in the future. So the content of my presentation is basically divided in section A, B, and C. The A is section A will deal with the importance of Indian Ocean region. B will highlight the climate risk assessment, a case of Bay of Bengal region. C is the case of UDA in multilateral constructs and the way forward. So the Indian Ocean region, as highlighted by the previous speakers, the it actually constitutes about 2.7 billion people in the countries that lives across the coastline. Then Indian Ocean is also rich in resources. About 40% of the world offshore oil production take place in the Indian Ocean basin. Then the energy flow around 36 million barrel per day, which is equivalent to around 40% of the world's total oil supply and 64% of the oil trade that passes through the choke points, which are located in the Indian Ocean region. The fishing, which is the most important economic activity and one of the most important activity for the livelihood of the people who are living across the coast, they account for about 15% of the world total fishing, and then it has actually increased about 13-fold from 1950 to 2010 to around 11.5 million. This is an very old data, but it's still relevant. It's still increasing day by day. The mineral resources, for example, the undersea bed, the seabed has actually a lot of rich mineral resources, which includes nodules of nickel, cobalt, iron, and massive sulfide deposits, and they are in very great quantity, which all the countries under the ISA are actually looking forward to utilize or maybe exploit in the future. So this is the map of all the choke points that exist in the Indian Ocean region. If you look at the choke points, there are around eight choke points that 5 to 6 choke points that are there in the Indian Ocean region. So Indian Ocean region is important not just for everyone but also for India. So the ocean has become the vital part of our global ecosystem, and so in order to make the ocean resilient, it is become especially in the face of climate change, it is very important to understand the ecosystem of the underwater domain, because the Indian Ocean region is facing both the natural as well as the anthropogenic threats. So this has very significant impact not only on the marine lives but also on the human activities and the livelihood of those people. So the impacts of climate change is not only limited to the environment or the weather or the human beings. It also has an impact on the agriculture, which affects the socio-economic structure of that particular region. If there is less fishing, there is a scarcity of livelihood. The people will not be able to sustain their livelihood, and which will create a lot of political instability, as well as it will lead people fighting for limited amount of resources. So the case study that I took of the Bay of Bengal region, where I've analyzed the climate risk, which the Bay of Bengal region is facing. So as we know that the geography of a country, geography of any region is very different from each other. So before we adapt any mitigating strategy, we need to understand what are the specific vulnerability of that region. We cannot take a one shoe fit for all solution and apply it everywhere. So we need, in order to determine what the regional and the local authority needs in order to adapt the climate change, you need to assess the climate risk and how climate change will affect not just the people, the sectors, as well as the systems. So the case of Bay of Bengal region. So the Bay of Bengal region, it comprises of coastal states like Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Thailand, and Sri Lanka as well. And they are extremely vulnerable to climate change and has historically faced numerous deaths because of cyclone, and these four nations are amongst the top 10 most vulnerable to the natural disasters. And some of the concern which are related to climate change in the region includes the increased frequency of and intensity of cyclones, which leads to more destruction and displacement. Remember that the climate induced migration is one of the biggest threat that we will see in the future. So which will not only impact one particular country, but it will have an impact on the entire region. For example, the cyclone I was talking about, the cyclone Mocha, which caused heavy damage to the property and lives in Bangladesh and Myanmar. Earlier to that, cyclones like Amphan, Fani, Yas, and etc., which caused a lot of damage to the countries bordering the Bay of Bengal region. And because of the large number of cyclones which are hitting the coast of Bay of Bengal region, this region has actually caused around 80% of the world cyclone related deaths. And the other problem that the region is also facing is the rising sea level threat in coastal cities like Bangkok, which can be underwater by 2050. And the vulnerability are high, and the vulnerabilities are also high along the shores of major river. For example, Bangladesh, their coastal south and southeast district, which is Chittagong district, and Sylhet district, which will be with their communities will be impoverished on sandbars, which are facing the risk of seasonal floods. So the climate change has various impacts, not just towards the ocean, but it also has an impact on the flash floods, which can be increased, the rainfall variability, which will have an impact on the agriculture productivity, and the sea level rise, which will eventually lead to a lot of climate-induced migration. So the climate risk, which includes the increased frequency and the rising sea level, and a warm of temperature and climate induced migration. The map on your right, with the countries which are highlighted, the flags they highlight, they are the most vulnerable to the climate risk. So because these coastal areas are highly populated, are densely populated, so any increase in the sea level will have an impact on these particular regions. So climate induced hazard will also include increase the conflict over the resources, the land, and the political representation, which are one of the long-standing problems in Bangladesh. And climate change is likely to enhance those potential issues. So the potential of climate related migration, it will also inflate border issues, and it will spark conflict among the region. As we have already seen, the Rohingyas issue, the refugee issue has already been highlighted at multiple international forum. But imagine the increase in refugee and the migrants due to climate change will further increase the security threats between the countries. So moving on to impacts, as I've highlighted, there will be loss of land loss and everything. So the impacts, what are the specific impacts on India? So India being the largest country in the Bay of Bengal region, it encompasses wide variety of climates, geographic backgrounds, and economic landscape. Our population has exceeded about 1.4 billion, making us the largest populated country. India is also the fourth most vulnerable country worldwide to climate change. So our inefficient disaster preparedness has also led to significant vulnerability to major weather threats, which was seen during the cyclone Amphan in 2015, which resulted in widespread destruction and displacement. So coastal states like the eastern coast of India, with states like Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, as well as the northeastern states like Assam, Bihar, Manipur, West Bengal, are particularly susceptible to the climate-driven changes. Moreover, the presence of large number of internally displaced persons, IDPs, and the possibility of cross-border migration from Bangladesh will further increase the complexity of the situation. So, as per the Coastal Vulnerability Index of these states, Kolkata, if you look at the, it is highlighted in red. So it Kolkata is at high risk of coastal hazards such as coastal storm surges, rising sea level, erosion pose a serious threat, danger to the physical as well as the economic and social structure of the communities and the coastal communities and the population. The critical infrastructure that exists in the West Kolkata, for example, the ports, with the rise in sea level, they will be at the higher vulnerability, which will also lead to diversion of trade, and the trade will also get impacted. And once the trade impacted, the entire region or the entire country will get impacted because of the issue of inflation and subsequent issues which may follow up in the future. So vulnerability of the eastern coast. I know the picture is not very clear, but this was a study which was done by IPCC, which says that about has warned about 1 meter rise in the sea level by 2100, and if 1 meter rise of sea level is going to be there, the red highlighted area of those states will be underwater. So the population living in those areas will be highly affected by it, and if they are going to displace one particular location to another, which will further enhance the problem and the complexities that India is already facing. So what are the optimum solution? So our solution can be optimum utilization of resources. India should be leading in the front. They should act as an opportunity. They should take it as an opportunity to act as a voice of South Asia in global forums, learning from one another and cooperation under BIMSTEC. But the question that arises is, how do we achieve these solutions? So that's why we need to adopt the underwater domain awareness framework in various multilateral constructs. Because if you don't address the climate change issue at the very root cause, then you won't be able to mitigate it at the higher level. So, underwater domain awareness framework exactly addresses those issues. So the multilateralism, you know that it's the smaller countries which are there in the region, the wider Indian Ocean region, they do not have any voices. If you look at the international forum, their voices are not mostly heard under the security threats, for example, the invasion, the South China Sea, gray zone warfare, and everything. So the climate change, the climate issue get somehow disappeared in the conversation. So we need a multilateral approach where the smaller countries can actually voice their issue, the threats that they are going to face from the climate change. So multilateralism at the moment is going to be one of the most important, is going to play a crucial role in maybe mitigating the impacts of climate change and the victory. If you look at the agenda that was there at the G20, it highlights that India at the moment recognize the impacts of climate change. It will have not only on its coastal region but also across the region. And once you have instability in the within the region, then the impacts on that particular on India is going to be very high. So what is underwater domain awareness framework? How do we integrate it in multilateral, and how is it going to address the climate change issue? So the underwater domain awareness framework, which is proposed by the Maritime Research Center, MRC, exactly aims to address the need for policy and technology intervention which will improve the understanding and management of the underwater environments. So climate change, which pose a lot of threats to the coastal regions, so enhancing UDA capabilities can help the coastal states build resilience against these impacts. So, now, for example, monitoring the vulnerable species and ecosystem, UDA enable tracking of migratory pattern, identifying the endangered species, and assessing the health of the coral reef. If you are able to monitor what are the vulnerable species and the vulnerable ecosystem, your approach is going to be more comprehensive and targeted towards addressing the cause. Then disaster preparedness and early warning system is something which is extremely important if you want your country to be prepared for disasters in advance. So UDA contributes in minimizing the devastating impacts of the climate disasters. It does not say that we will stop the natural disaster, but we will be better prepared in order to tackle those natural disasters in a timely and more targeted, and there will be more timely and targeted response available to us. Then resource management. In resource management, UDA supports the sustainable resources exploration and regulation, which helps in maintaining the healthy marine lives. Once you have the healthy marine lives, the fishing will also increase. The dependencies of the coastal countries, coastal states on the fishing is very high. So if you are able to preserve the fishing population, fish population in your region, we are very much likely to make sure that your own country or your own coastal states are going to be going to be more sustained in terms of fishing and their livelihood. Then what are the technology advances? The artificial intelligence and the learning algorithms, which helps us analyze the vast amount of data, which provides an actionable insight into marine ecosystem dynamics. So AI and ML can enable the expert to identify and monitor the vulnerable species, track the migratory patterns, assess the health of coral reefs, and enhance the early warning system of the natural disaster. Now, the second last is capacity building and adaptive strategies. Investment in UDA capabilities is definitely necessary for the coastal states to remain competitive and adaptive in face of climate change. So the UDA framework encompasses various aspects, which includes offering precise input on resource availability for effective exploitation, then enhancing the understanding of habitat destruction and species vulnerability, which can be caused by the human activities, then focusing on acoustic capabilities and capacity building as our core requirement for effective UDA implementation. Last is international partnership. So international part, we cannot do this alone. The impacts of climate change is going to impact everyone. So not one single country can mitigate it. Not one country can actually contribute in mitigating the impact. So we need to work together. We need to have a more collaborative efforts among the nation, and such as constructs like IORA, BIMSTEC, then Maritime Conclave. They can actually strengthen the maritime security. They will promote the sustainable resources management and will also enable for more effective responses to the natural disasters and other shared challenges. So, in conclusion, UDA definitely offers a promising solution to the very complex problem which is posed by the climate change, which is associated to the coastal communities as well as to the marine ecosystem. It represents a strategic opportunity for the international cooperation that will benefit not just the individual country, but it will also enhance the global efforts towards sustainability and resilience. To sum it up, we also the realization of the true potential of the ocean can only be accompanied by the awareness to drive the economic development from marine resources, while ensuring that there is a conservation sustainable management of the marine ecosystem. And for that, you need to understand the underwater ecosystem. If you don't have understanding of the underwater ecosystem, your responses are not going to be very targeted and comprehensive. Therefore, we need to adopt a UDA at a multilateral construct. We need to advocate as individual country or as a global country that there should be a underwater domain awareness discussion at various constructs, be it IORA, be it BIMSTEC. Otherwise, we won't be able to solve the solution problems on our own. With that, thank you for your attention. I would be very happy to take any question in later on in the discussion.